On a peaceful autumn night, when the world had grown completely silent, a young traveler named Elian stood beside the window of his small cottage, watching the endless sky. The moon shone softly above distant mountains, and countless stars filled the heavens with quiet beauty. A gentle breeze carried the fragrance of pine trees, fresh grass, and wild flowers through the open window. Elian had always loved the night because it reminded him that peace still existed for those willing to slow their hearts. His grandfather often said, "A grateful heart always finds a brighter path." Those words had quietly remained with him throughout his life. Tonight, however, everything felt different. The silence seemed warmer, the stars looked brighter, and even the wind carried an unfamiliar sense of hope. As he looked across the quiet meadow, a tiny silver light appeared above the grass. It floated slowly, glowing with a calm beauty that filled his heart with comfort instead of fear. The light drifted toward his window, paused for a moment, and then gently moved away, as if inviting him to follow. Without hesitation, Elian wrapped his cloak around his shoulders and stepped outside. The village slept peacefully beneath the moon. Every home was quiet, every tree stood still, and only the soft whisper of leaves accompanied his footsteps. The glowing light guided him across the meadow until they reached an ancient marble staircase hidden among flowering trees. Elian had crossed these hills many times before, yet he had never seen such a place. Every white step reflected the moonlight with remarkable beauty before disappearing into the clouds above. At the entrance stood a graceful stone arch engraved with gentle words, "Only humble hearts may continue." Elian lowered his head and quietly prayed for wisdom, patience, kindness, gratitude, and the courage to follow what was right. Then he stepped onto the first shining stair. Instantly, the cool breeze became warmer. The stars seemed closer, and every burden inside his heart felt lighter. Step by step, he climbed higher, while the familiar world slowly disappeared beneath a peaceful sea of clouds. Ahead, beyond the silver mist, a gentle golden glow shimmered across the horizon. It was not the rising sun, nor the setting day. It was a light unlike anything he had ever seen. As he continued climbing, Elian realized that the greatest journey was never about reaching a distant place. It was about becoming a better person with every peaceful step. Somewhere beyond the clouds, hidden from hurried eyes, but never from grateful hearts. A magnificent city patiently waited. It welcomed no one through wealth, power, or pride. Its gates opened only for those who carried kindness, humility, patience, honesty, and hope within their hearts. With calm determination, Eliane took another step toward the mysterious light, unaware that this quiet decision would become the beginning of the most beautiful adventure of his entire life. Eliane continued climbing until the final marble step disappeared beneath his feet. The sea of clouds slowly opened before him, revealing a breathtaking landscape unlike anything he had ever imagined. The sky above was still filled with countless stars, yet their light seemed softer and warmer, as though every star carried its own quiet melody. Before him stretched a magnificent stone bridge, suspended above the clouds. Its smooth white surface reflected the moonlight like polished crystal, while graceful lanterns lined both sides, glowing with a gentle golden light instead of fire. As Eliane stepped onto the bridge, he noticed there was no sound except the calm rhythm of his own breathing. Even the wind moved peacefully, never rushing, never disturbing the silence. Halfway across the bridge, he stopped to admire the endless beauty surrounding him. Below, the clouds flowed like a silent ocean. Above, the heavens shimmered with peaceful light. For the first time in many years, he felt completely free from worry. He remembered another lesson his grandfather had once shared. Peace does not arrive when every problem disappears. It arrives when the heart learns to trust with patience. Eliane smiled gently, realizing those words had become more meaningful than ever before. As he reached the end of the bridge, an enormous gate slowly appeared through the silver mist. It was built from brilliant white stone, decorated with elegant carvings of trees, rivers, stars, and birds. The gate stood open without guards or locks, as though it had been waiting for him all along. Beyond it lay a quiet road lined with tall silver trees, whose leaves shimmered softly beneath the moon. Their branches swayed together in perfect harmony, creating a peaceful whisper that sounded almost like a comforting lullaby. Colorful flowers covered the ground beside the path, releasing a delicate fragrance that filled the cool air with freshness and calm. Crystal streams flowed gently between the gardens, reflecting the stars so clearly that the sky seemed to continue beneath the water. Eliane walked slowly, taking in every beautiful detail. He noticed that nothing in this place demanded attention. Nothing shouted for admiration. Everything simply existed in perfect balance, reminding every traveler that true beauty never needed to compete. A gentle white bird landed upon a nearby stone, watching him without fear, before gracefully flying toward the heart of the city. Elion quietly followed, feeling that every step carried him deeper into a place built not only from stone and light, but also from peace itself. In the distance, elegant towers rose above the gardens, their golden rooftops glowing beneath the endless stars. Elion knew his journey had only begun, yet his heart no longer carried uncertainty. It carried hope, gratitude, and a growing sense that every peaceful step was leading him exactly where he was always meant to be. The white bird guided Elion along the peaceful road until they reached the heart of the hidden city. There stood a magnificent garden, unlike any place he had ever seen. Gentle streams flowed between smooth marbled paths, while graceful willow trees leaned over the crystal water as though protecting its silence. Thousands of white and blue flowers bloomed beneath the moonlight, filling the air with a fresh, comforting fragrance. Butterflies with shimmering wings drifted quietly from flower to flower, and small birds sang soft melodies that blended perfectly with the whisper of the breeze. Nothing felt hurried. Nothing felt ordinary. Every corner of the garden seemed to invite the heart to slow down and simply enjoy the gift of the present moment. Elion sat beside a clear fountain whose water reflected every star above. As he watched the gentle ripples, he noticed words carved into the marble edge. They read, "The heart finds rest not by owning more, but by needing less." He read the sentence several times, allowing its meaning to settle within him. Suddenly, he realized how much of his life had been spent chasing tomorrow while forgetting the beauty already placed before him today. He closed his eyes and quietly thanked his Creator for every blessing he had received, whether great or small. When he opened them again, the garden somehow appeared even more beautiful than before. An elderly gardener slowly approached, carrying a simple wooden watering can. His face was peaceful, and his smile carried the warmth of someone who had learned to live without envy or regret. Without asking Elion any questions, he gently watered a row of young flowers before speaking. "Every flower grows at its own pace," he said softly. "The rose never competes with the lily, and the lily never envies the cedar tree. Each one simply becomes what it was created to be." Elion listened carefully. Those gentle words touched his heart more deeply than any long speech ever could. He understood that comparing one life to another, only steals the peace already placed within us. The gardener smiled once more before quietly continuing his work, leaving Elian alone with his thoughts. As the moon climbed higher into the sky, the silver bird returned and landed beside him again. It looked toward a quiet path leading beyond the garden, where warm golden lanterns glowed between rows of ancient trees. Elian stood slowly, feeling lighter than when he had arrived. He realized that every place within this mysterious city carried a lesson, and every lesson gently transformed the heart, without force or fear. Taking one calm breath, he followed the bird once again, knowing another beautiful discovery awaited beyond the peaceful garden. Following the silver bird, Elian walked along the lantern-lit path until he arrived at a quiet hill overlooking the entire dream city. The view before him was beyond imagination. Marble streets curved gracefully between peaceful gardens. Crystal streams reflected the stars like flowing mirrors, and elegant bridges connected every corner of the city with perfect harmony. There was no noise, no confusion, and no hurry. Everything moved with a gentle rhythm that brought comfort to the heart. Elian sat beneath a tall cedar tree, whose branches swayed softly in the cool night breeze. Above him, the moon shone brighter than ever, and the endless sky seemed close enough to touch. As he rested, he noticed an old wooden bench facing the horizon. Carved into its smooth surface were simple words. "The calmest soul is the richest. Traveler." He quietly repeated the sentence several times, allowing its meaning to settle deep within his heart. He realized that people often spend their lives searching for treasures far away while forgetting the priceless gift of inner peace. At that moment, a gentle breeze carried the pleasant fragrance of jasmine through the air. The silver bird landed beside a small lantern resting on the ground. Without making a sound, it looked toward the distant horizon where countless stars shimmered above the clouds. Elian followed its gaze and noticed something remarkable. Every star seemed to reflect upon the crystal rivers below, making it impossible to tell where the sky ended and the water began. The entire city appeared suspended between heaven and earth, surrounded by beauty from every direction. He smiled quietly, feeling grateful for every step that had brought him here. Suddenly, he heard the soft sound of flowing water nearby. Curious, he followed the sound until he reached a small spring, emerging from white stone. The water was so clear that every pebble beneath its surface could be seen perfectly. Elian gently washed his hands and face, feeling an unexpected freshness that seemed to calm both body and mind. Above the spring, another message had been carved into the stone. A thankful heart remains fresh, just as pure water never loses its beauty. Elian understood that gratitude was not something spoken only with words. It was a way of living, seeing every blessing with appreciation, even the smallest ones. As he stood once again, the silver bird gracefully flew toward another peaceful road leading beyond the hill. Warm lanterns stretched into the distance, lighting a path surrounded by tall, flowering trees whose petals floated gently through the night air like tiny white feathers. Elian took one final look at the peaceful city behind him before continuing forward. His heart no longer searched for answers with impatience. Instead, it welcomed each new step with quiet trust, knowing that every peaceful path was gently preparing him for an EVEN, greater DISCOVERY, waiting beyond the next horizon. The peaceful road carried Elian beyond the flowering trees until he reached a quiet valley, wrapped in soft moonlight. Unlike the beautiful gardens behind him, this place felt even calmer, as though silence itself had chosen to rest there forever. Gentle streams flowed between smooth white stones, creating a melody so delicate that it sounded like a quiet lullaby. The air was cool and pure, carrying the sweet fragrance of lavender and fresh cedar leaves. Above the valley, countless stars reflected upon the water, making the earth appear as though it had borrowed the beauty of the heavens. Elian walked slowly. Every breath filled his heart with gratitude. Soon he discovered a small wooden bridge crossing the crystal stream. At its center stood a simple lantern, glowing with a warm golden light. Hanging beneath it was a wooden plaque carved with gentle words, "One that forgives before it is asked." Elian stopped quietly. He remembered moments from his heart far longer than it should have, standing beneath the peaceful stars. It also frees the one who chooses it, asking Allah to fill his heart with mercy, patience, and sincerity. The night breeze answered with a gentle whisper through the trees, and for the first time, he felt completely free from old burdens, flying only a short distance ahead before waiting patiently. It seemed to know exactly where the journey should continue. Beyond the bridge stood a circle of tall olive trees surrounding a quiet, open space. In its center rested a smooth white stone, untouched except for a single sentence carved across its surface. He understood that great journeys are never built in one giant step, Kindness, gratitude, and patience repeated every single day. Looking toward the horizon, he noticed a gentle silver mist slowly rising between the distant hills, changing not only his journey, but the way he would forever understand the true meaning of contentment. The moon had climbed higher into the sky as Eliane followed the quiet path beyond the silver mist. Soon, the glowing towers he had seen from a distance stood clearly before him. They were even more magnificent than he had imagined. Their white marble walls reflected the moonlight with a soft glow, while golden rooftops shimmered beneath the stars. Yet what amazed him most was not their beauty, but the complete silence surrounding them. There were no crowds, no hurried footsteps, and no loud voices. Everything rested in perfect harmony. As Eliane entered the peaceful courtyard, he discovered a magnificent library unlike any he had ever seen. Its doors stood open, welcoming every traveler. Inside, endless wooden shelves stretched toward the high ceiling, filled with beautifully bound books of every size. The air carried the comforting scent of aged wood and fresh parchment. Soft lanterns illuminated every corner without disturbing the calm atmosphere. Curiously, Eliane opened one of the books. Its pages contained no stories of kings, battles, or treasures. Instead, every page held short reflections about kindness, gratitude, patience, honesty, mercy, and humility. Each sentence was simple, yet every word felt deeply meaningful. One page caught his attention immediately. Knowledge becomes light only when it transforms the heart. Eliane quietly repeated the sentence several times, realizing that learning was never meant to increase pride. As he continued reading, an elderly librarian approached with gentle footsteps. His face reflected peace rather than age, and his eyes carried the warmth of genuine kindness. Smiling softly, he said, "Books may guide the mind, but only good character guides the soul." Eliane thanked him respectfully. The librarian nodded and slowly returned to arranging the shelves, leaving the room as peacefully as he had entered. Before leaving, Eliane noticed one final book resting alone upon a small white table. Its cover carried no title. When he opened it, the first page contained only one sentence. "The greatest chapter of every life is written through every day. Goodness." Eliane closed the book with a grateful smile. He understood that true greatness was never found in fame or wealth, but in countless quiet choices made with sincerity. As he stepped outside, the silver bird was waiting beside the library entrance. It spread its wings and flew toward another peaceful road, lined with glowing lanterns. Elion followed with steady footsteps, his heart lighter than ever before. The dream city was revealing its treasures, one lesson at a time. His soul found a deeper peace than he had ever believed possible. Another quiet mystery patiently waited beneath the endless stars. The silver bird led Elion beyond the quiet library until the lanterns slowly faded into the distance. Before him stretched a peaceful valley where the night breeze moved gently through endless fields of white lilies. Their delicate petals shimmered. The air was filled with a soft, floral fragrance that brought instant calm to his heart. Nearby, a narrow crystal river flowed silently between smooth white stones, reflecting the moon, and the countless seemed to continue beneath the water. Elion paused for a long moment, listening to the peaceful rhythm of the flowing stream. It reminded him that life's greatest beauty often speaks without words. As he continued walking, he noticed an old wooden windmill standing alone upon a small hill, producing a quiet melody that blended beautifully with the sounds of nature. At its entrance hung a simple wooden sign that read, "The patient heart never fears the passing of time." Elion smiled thoughtfully. He realized that throughout his life, he had often worried about tomorrow while forgetting to appreciate today. It felt like a gift to receive with gratitude. He climbed the small hill and sat beneath the windmill, watching clouds drift peacefully across the moonlit sky. For a while, he closed his eyes and simply listened. Only peace. In that quiet moment, he remembered another saying from his grandfather: "When the heart learns to be still, even silence becomes a wise teacher." Those words now carried a meaning he had never fully understood before. Elion noticed the silver bird waiting beside a narrow stone path leading toward a distant hillside. Silver leaves shimmered as he walked beneath their branches, covering the ground like a peaceful blanket. Small stone pavilion overlooking the entire dream city. From there, Elion could see glowing towers, crystal rivers, peaceful gardens, and graceful bridges stretching beneath the endless stars. The sight filled him with quiet gratitude rather than excitement. He understood that true peace was not found by reaching a destination. It was found by becoming the kind of person who could appreciate every blessing. With renewed hope, Elion offered a quiet prayer of thanks, then followed the silver bird once more as it disappeared toward another moonlit path. where a new lesson patiently waited beneath the calm and beautiful night sky. The moonlit path gently descended from the hillside until Elion reached a quiet lakeshore hidden among ancient cedar trees. The water was perfectly still, reflecting every star with such clarity that it seemed impossible to tell where the sky ended and the lake began. A soft mist floated across the surface, glowing beneath the moonlight like delicate silk. The silver birds circled above the lake once before, landing beside a small wooden boat tied to an old white pier. Without fear, Eliane stepped into the boat. The rope untied itself, as though guided by an invisible hand, and the little boat began drifting across the silent water without oars or sails. There was no sound except the gentle movement of the lake beneath him. The peaceful journey invited him to leave every anxious thought behind. As the boat glided farther from the shore, Elion noticed hundreds of tiny lights floating across the water like golden stars. They moved slowly with the gentle current, creating a breathtaking scene that filled his heart with wonder. He reached toward one of the glowing lights, but stopped before touching it, choosing instead to simply admire its beauty. At that moment, not every beautiful thing is meant to be owned, appreciated with grateful. Eliane smiled quietly. There stood a single ancient olive tree whose wide branches stretched peacefully toward the heavens. Beneath the tree rested a smooth circle of white stones surrounding a gentle spring, filling the air with a fresh and calming sound. Carved into one of the stones were simple words: "Contentment is the quiet treasure that never fades." Eliane, he realized that happiness does not grow from having everything we desire. It grows from appreciating what Allah has already provided. The more grateful his heart became, the lighter his soul felt. A cool breeze passed gently through the olive branches, scattering a few silver leaves across the ground. The silver bird returned, landing quietly beside him before looking toward the opposite shore, where another lantern-lit path disappeared into the peaceful forest. Eliane stood with renewed hope. Before leaving, he whispered a sincere prayer of gratitude for the journey, the lessons, and the peace filling his heart. Then he stepped back into the waiting boat. As it carried him toward the distant shore beneath the endless stars, within the dream city was not leading him away from himself, but bringing him closer to the person he was always meant to become. As the little wooden boat reached the opposite shore, Eliane stepped onto a peaceful stone path surrounded by towering cedar and olive trees. The forest was unlike any place he had ever known. Moonlight filtered gently through the branches, painting delicate silver patterns across the ground. The air carried the refreshing scent of pine, jasmine, and cool morning dew. Even though the night was still young, every breath felt pure, and every heartbeat seemed calmer than the last. The silver bird flew quietly ahead, never rushing, always waiting whenever Elian paused to admire the beauty around him. Before long, the trees opened into a wide clearing where a magnificent circular pavilion stood. Beneath the stars, its graceful marble columns supported a crystal dome that reflected the moonlight with breathtaking elegance. In the center rested a quiet pool, so still that it reflected the heavens like a flawless mirror. Elian slowly approached the water and gazed into its surface. At first, he saw only the stars above. Then, little by little, the reflection changed. Instead of showing his face, the water revealed moments of kindness from his own life that he had almost forgotten. He saw himself helping an elderly neighbor carry heavy baskets, comforting a lonely child, sharing food with someone in need, and offering gentle words to a worried friend. None of these moments had seemed extraordinary at the time, yet here they shone brighter than precious jewels. Elian felt tears of gratitude gathering in his eyes. He finally understood that even the smallest act of goodness is never truly lost. Every sincere deed leaves a beautiful mark that only Allah fully knows. Beside the peaceful pool stood a smooth white stone engraved with a simple reminder: the smallest kindness often creates the brightest light. Elian placed his hand upon the stone and quietly thanked Allah for allowing him to witness such wisdom. His heart became lighter than ever before. He realized that greatness is not measured by applause or recognition, but by quiet goodness, performed without expecting anything in return. At that moment, a gentle breeze crossed the pavilion, creating soft ripples across the water. The reflection slowly returned to the peaceful stars above. The silver bird spread its wings once again and flew toward another path illuminated by elegant golden lanterns. Beyond them, distant hills glowed beneath the moonlight, promising another peaceful lesson waiting to be discovered. With calm confidence, Elian smiled and continued his journey, carrying within his heart a new understanding that every sincere act of mercy, no matter how small, becomes a light that quietly guides the soul through every season of life. The lantern-lit path led Elian gently beyond the marble pavilion until the forest slowly faded behind him. Ahead stood a peaceful mountain, covered with soft green grass and ancient cedar trees. A narrow stone trail climbed quietly toward its summit, where a single white gazebo overlooked the entire dream city. The moon hung high above, brighter than ever, while countless stars surrounded it like tiny jewels scattered across the heavens. The silver bird flew ahead, pausing from time to time, as though encouraging Eliane to continue without haste. Every step felt lighter than the one before, and every breath carried the cool fragrance of cedar, wild herbs, and fresh mountain air. When Eliane finally reached the summit, he stopped in complete silence. The view before him was beyond imagination. Crystal rivers shimmered beneath the moonlight. Graceful bridges connected peaceful gardens, and elegant towers glowed softly among silver trees. Everything below seemed perfectly balanced, as though every part of the city existed only to remind the heart that peace was possible. Eliane entered the small white gazebo and noticed a simple wooden table placed at its center. Upon it rested an old hourglass filled with brilliant silver sand. The sand flowed slowly from the upper chamber into the lower one without making a sound. Beside it lay a small stone engraved with gentle words. Time is not your enemy. It is your greatest teacher. Eliane watched the falling sand for several quiet moments. He realized that people often fear time because they measure life by what they have lost. Yet every new day is also another opportunity to grow kinder, wiser, more patient, and more grateful. He understood that no peaceful life is built in a single moment. It is shaped through countless small choices made faithfully every day. As he reflected upon this truth, the cool breeze gently turned the hourglass without anyone touching it. Fresh silver sand began flowing once more, reminding him that every sunrise brings another chance to begin again. Eliane smiled with quiet gratitude. He whispered a sincere prayer, thanking Allah for guiding him through every lesson hidden within the dream city. His heart no longer carried the weight of yesterday or the fear of tomorrow. Instead, it rested peacefully in the blessings of the present moment. The silver bird returned and landed upon the wooden railing of the gazebo. It looked toward a distant valley where countless golden lights shimmered beneath the stars. Eliane followed its gaze and felt a quiet excitement unlike anything he had known before. He sensed that the greatest lesson of his journey was drawing near. With calm confidence and a grateful heart, he stepped away from the gazebo and followed the silver bird toward the glowing valley, where another peaceful chapter patiently waited beneath the endless night sky.